The negative claims that, my name is Maria Wilson, so I'm going to read for the affirmative side. The negative claims that the majority of people who are on the minimum wage are not trying to run a household. The negative cited some statistics stating that, like 50% of the working people are 16 to 24-year-olds. And my partner and I do not disagree with the negative's claim that people at or below the federal minimum are often disproportionately young and therefore are only the second earners. We do not disagree with that. However, this is not a well-rounded case for an argument because one, the negative undermines the fact that even if more than half of the minimum wage earners are in the 16 to 24 age category, they still have expenses to pay, especially and particularly if they're college students. Paul Goebel, director of the Student Money Management Center at the University of North Texas, says, an increase of any personal expenses can easily throw a student's budget into the red. Bob Berger, an Arizona-based financial planner, says, one reason for this is personal expenses are the great unknown. Cost of tuition, room and board have been well documented in studies, but the rising cost of transportation and personal expenses aren't as well known. Furthermore, the negative side states that many of the minimum wage workers are second earners. The negative undermines the significance of the minimum wage worker based on the idea that they are only second earners. But what the negative side fails to explain is that many of the second earners come from families that earn less than $40,000 a year. Now, they did mention a statistic on that. However, the New York Times says, available data suggests that roughly half the workers likely to be affected by the $10 an hour level proposed by the president are in families earning less than $40,000 a year. So while raising the minimum wage from the current $7.25 an hour may not be particularly well targeted as an anti-poverty proposal, it's not a badly targeted one either. The negative second claim mentions that raising the minimum wage will decrease employment levels. They cite statistic, I did not hear any statistics of how that would be the case. However, extensive research on the affirmative side states that refutes the claim that increasing the minimum wage causes increased unemployment and business closures. Business Week observed in 2001 that many economists have backed away from the argument that minimum wage laws lead to fewer jobs. And according to Business, a national network of business owners and executives, numerous states raised their minimum wages higher than the federal level during the 97 and 2007 period. The federal minimum wage remained stuck at $5.15. Research by the Fiscal Policy Institute and others showed that states that raised their minimum wages above the federal level experienced better employment and small business trends than states that did not. My partner and I do not deny that the possibility of job loss is definitely there. That is not wholesomely out of the question. But New York Times says overall the budget office estimated that the lifting minimum wage to 1010 and indexing it to inflation would reduce total employment by 0.3%. That is what the negative side failed to mention when they made the statistic of 5,000 workers. That is very, very minimal compared to what would be. But liberal economists said that quibbling over the jobs numbers neglected a central finding in the report, that many workers would benefit from the increase in income. Jared Bernstein, a former Obama administrative economist now at the Center of Budget and Policy Priorities, says CBO chose a higher number to reflect their best work, but they did not always, but they're not way off the reservation. But even if they're right, the beneficiaries far, far outweigh the people who are hurt by this. The opponent suggests that businesses facing higher labor costs would raise prices, passing those higher costs on to their customers. That would lead their customers to cut back on their purchases, meaning that businesses would need fewer workers. But job loss depends on more lucrative factors. Businesses might reduce their use of low-wage workers and shift their spending towards other things instead. So like automated systems and machinery, depending on what they choose. The negative side does not represent any data demonstrating the higher minimum wage would offset at least part, if not all, of job loss effect by helping increase spending power. The negative third claim is that there are better ways to take responsibility for this. They mentioned an example, the EITC, which is the Earned Income Tax Credit. In order to claim this particular credit they mentioned, candidates must qualify for all of the rules listed on their particular IRS website, which are precise and very strict. According to the IRS rules for the EITC, two of the numerous rules to qualify for the EITC state a person must either be have a qualifying child, or if they do not have a qualifying child, must be age 25 to 65 by the end of the year, which would basically exclude the 50.6% minimum wage 16 to 24 age category that we mentioned earlier. This particular example does not seem to strengthen the negative side. Favoring the EITC would increase the federal budget deficit and put additional stress on their taxpayers. My partner and I are aware that raising minimum wage has been used as poverty-fighting weapon. We would like to clarify that we are not arguing about poverty. We're just simply stating that our initial proposition is that raising minimum wage will help offset inflation and the cost of living for these low-wage minimum workers. We are not talking about reducing poverty, but we understand that it is an part of it. Conclusively, my partner and I affirm that with these evidences, the U.S. federal should move and install the $10 by the congressional date. They propose that businesses will be, our opponents propose that businesses will be unable to adjust to this date. It is too soon for companies to implement this into their policies. However, there is a twist in this claim that businesses will not be able to adjust quickly enough. The Economic Policy Institute stipulates that minimum wage already depends on two relatively recent developments in the history of minimum wage. The negatives argument doesn't factor in that according to Economic Policy Institute, numerous states, that's about 12, have raised their minimum wage above the federal level, so above the 1010 or the 725 current one. This would mean that those companies in those states who already have this minimum wage above the federal level wouldn't even have to adjust to anything because they're above that. Additionally, according to Congressional Budget Office...
I've got to cut you off here.
I just have one more sentence.
Okay.
This new minimum wage policy would only affect new contracts signed in 2015, and it wouldn't affect anyone who's already installed.